I'm Orla Dempsey, primary school teacher and the teacher promotion mentor. Just a few years ago, I was teaching in a small rural school and I took the career break that changed my life. In 2017, I launched my small business. I learned how to lead it in new ways. I stepped outside my comfort zone and I managed my own organisation, and I led it to 6 figures in 2023. I'm a specialist in the Looking at Our School document. If you're a growth-oriented teacher and you believe that education can transform lives, the Growth in Education and Leadership podcast will help you. This podcast will empower you to transform your experience and your qualifications into the role of your dreams.
Today's podcast, we are going to be discussing something that's been coming up again and again in my interview answers and my interview questions with my one-to-one client. It is the power of the impact that they are making in. I find that it's something that teachers give very little thought to when it comes to preparing for interviews. Again, it's a little inner gremlin on the shoulder saying, oh, you're a member of a team. Don't get too big for your boots. These are common human experiences in terms of when we are putting ourselves out there. The little inner gremlin doesn't want us to say good things, doesn't want us to be moving forward. But we know that it is something that's very important to you to progress in your career. So it is a very, very good idea to take some time to self-reflect on the impact that you are making in your school and in your community. So in today's podcast, what I'm going to do is explain the 3 reasons why you should reflect on your impact. Then I will go into some action points that you can take and reflection points of things that would have come up with my one-to-one clients and explaining about the impact that they have or that they could be, and encouraging you to think of the positive impact and the negative impacts of the actions that you've taken so far in your career. Some of them will be more major things, and just using that coaching style approach to be able to reflect on so that you can articulate it in a clear way for interviewers. So the first reason to self-reflect on the impact that you've made is because of it increases your self-awareness. When you reflect on your impact, you can identify your strengths and your areas for improvement. So, for example, if you have been in charge of the Green Schools flag within the school or the Green Schools initiative within the school, you can think of what was the impact on our school from before we ever had the green flag to now when we have this green flag. So reflecting on that, well, we're much more aware of waste. We have a sense of pride and community around the environment within our school. And thirdly, it enhances your personal growth. So the more that we can dig, it encourages you to dig below the surface and to think about your own personal growth in that area. Secondly, a reason why to improve your knowledge of the impact that you are making is that it improves your communication. In interviews, it's very important to communicate clearly and simply. Everything your interview answers, whether it be your strengths and weaknesses question, whether it be your results part of the STAR technique, whether it be the task and the action part of the STAR technique, the simpler you can say it, the better. And explaining in simple terms will help them understand the impact that you have made. So it's a great way to simplify things for you in terms of showcasing your achievements, engaging and inspiring the members of your school community, whether that be communicating the fact that you now have this wonderful celebration at the end of the school year, a great achievement for the school, that sense of pride, and the impact really helps them to get into the moment with you and communicating that in a clear and simple way. And on that point as well, in terms of communication, it builds your credibility. When you can explain the impact and communicate your impact within the school, they start to take note of the fact that you have made this wonderful improvement in the school and they start to infer and build out the bigger picture in terms of what you can do and what you could do for them in their school as well. And thirdly, knowing your impact within the school builds your ideas or builds your capacity to self-promote. This is uncomfortable for many teachers, but it is very important as you move forward, excited and are ready to hear the good things about you, because they want to find the best candidate for their role. They have a problem, and the problem is they have nobody for that position, and you are showing up as the solution to their problem. So self-promotion is very important. If you start to show your impact and show that self-awareness and communicate things, it will have great effect on your ability to explain and self-promote. So you will be highlighting the value that you have for that school. You will be able to build your confidence. So saying things in a clear way helps build your confidence. And once you know that you have a few reasons of why they should choose you or why you could have a great impact on their school community, that will help you to build your own confidence and self-awareness there. And you will be aligning with the employer needs. They have needs. They have awarenesses of things, maybe in terms of SSE, that they're not doing so well in. And you can come in and show them the impact that you've had in the past. This is where the result of your STAR technique comes in. And you can show them that you are going to be able to meet their needs in terms of the competencies, in terms of the ideas, in terms of the vision that you have for that role. So what we're going to do now is take some of those points and put them into practical terms, okay? So the first practical steps that you can take to identify and articulate your impact. Number one is reflect on your achievement. What achievements have you had in your career to date? What makes you proud? What impact have you had? Journaling about these questions will help you reflect on your career and think of specific instances where you made a significant difference, whether it's through improving student performance, implementing new programs, or contributing to a positive school culture. All of those are very interesting and important things to reflect on when you were thinking about the impact you've made. The second practical point that you could reflect on to articulate your impact is to gather evidence. From a coaching perspective and from a marketing perspective, numbers are very impressive. So when working with my clients, I would say to them, if they were working perhaps in a special class, I said, can you tell me how many students are in your class? And it could be probably unlikely to be 10. If it's a class of 3 students, a class of 6 students, what that does is it helps me to understand the school setting, the classroom setting, and the dynamics of what's going on there. I might then ask them, how many SNAs were you working with? And again, that helps build out the bigger picture for me. I might ask them about the results of the Sigma T or the Sigmas or the Micras. Do you have any hard facts of the changes and the impact that you made in your 4th class students, in your 6th class students? So digging below the surface is a great way to help you to gather evidence, whether that be data, whether that be here I have testimonials. Is there a comment that somebody made to you at any stage that made you feel very proud? That helps you to understand the impact that you're making and highlight your successes. This could be student test scores, it could be letters from parents, it could be recognition from colleagues or supervisors. So again, if you're an NQT, I often would have worked with the NQTs to say, well, what did your inspector say to you? What was the feedback they gave you? What were the positive comments they gave you? And again, that is helping you to become more and more self-aware. Another thing you can do to articulate your impact is to craft your stories. You'll know that I am a big fan of the STAR technique and using verbs in order to flesh out and put structure on your interview answers. That is a really good idea in order to tell your story simply. You can develop concise and compelling narratives around your impact. So this again will be referring back to the result of the STAR technique. So as a result of dealing with the tricky situation with a colleague, I noticed that. So that's going to score you highly in terms of self-awareness in the interview. because your answer showed that you were observing, that you were reflecting back on it and keeping 3 short little mini results and zipping up your answer then once you have shown your impact and shown that you've reflected on things. Reflection, I should say at this point, is never got to do with you. It's always got to do with the other person or for the organization, because you're wanting to show that you're contributing to others rather than just looking after yourself and developing your own career, because that is the system we're in. It is a very caring profession. We're trying to improve others. So crafting your stories is a great way to illustrate your competencies in interviews. Number 4, it's an uncomfortable one, but you could be doing it in the car. You could be walking around, just practicing when you're out on your walk, is practicing discussing your impact. Okay, this will have a very positive effect on your confidence, by the way. What you're doing is you're self-affirming, you're reminding yourself of the different times that you've achieved success, whether it be that student who was struggling financially or that student you made a massive difference in the way that they were being taught and the way that they could access learning. It could be the time that you helped the principal out with a skill set that you had and you observed that they were needing for a particular task within the school, because often we look to others to hear compliments or to hear that we've done a good job. But the very best way to build our own confidence and to build our self-awareness is to reflect and self-affirm and remind ourselves that we're doing a great job. So practicing those, the more comfortable you are with your stories, the more naturally they'll come across in the interview setting. So it's well worth it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some practical actions from my clients, things that they would have said, statements they would have made, and helping you to understand that each of these actions has many different impacts. So from a coaching perspective, I'll discuss some of the impacts that could have been, but there are many. The results part of the STAR technique is where it's a very personal experience, because my client has been there in that setting and to think of, so they have to often think hard and dig deep in their brain, in their subconscious to try and access, gosh, what was the result of that? So I'm going to give you some, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4 common things, like statements that teachers make to me. And you can do the same then once I've modeled it for you. I'll give you some examples of things and you can think of what the impact might have been. So the first one here, the action someone has taken. I stepped up when the principal was absent for 2 months. So somebody who was in an acting principal role, what was the impact of that? The impact might have been that the school ran smoothly. Staff had a trusted, capable leader to support them. And the school continued to grow and operate successfully. An action a teacher has taken is I wrote and published a textbook for junior cycle science. What might be the impact of that action? Well, it could be that teachers and students now have access to relevant, top-class information. It could be that colleagues were inspired and considered creating innovative and high-quality educational material themselves. Wouldn't that be amazing? To be inspired by a colleague. It could be that by aligning the textbook with the curriculum, the junior cycle now has another tool which is supported and it's an aligned curriculum and there's standardization. Okay, so there are many others. You can probably think of lots of other positive results of creating a textbook for your subject matter. This is the kind of things that teachers out there, isn't it wonderful, are doing to develop their leadership capacity, to develop the education system and develop the system itself. I created happy and productive learning environments for students in my classroom. What might the impact of that be? It could be that pupils feel safe and happy coming to my classes and they can share concerns with me. Very important for that student who's feeling a bit anxious. You make their day a little bit happier, a little bit safer. That's huge for that student. It could be the time is used wisely and the students know my expectations of them. There's lots of different impacts that creating a safe and supportive environment. Lastly, I went for the last deputy principal role in my school. What might the impact of that have? One might be that my colleagues now know that I have aspirations for senior leadership. And that could be a great thing also, because you could ask them to keep an eye out and an ear to the ground of other opportunities that are coming up in the locality. You mightn't have got it that time, but there can be positive impact to that also. It could be, I now know where I need to improve my interview answers. Okay, there's always learning. It's always positive. Or lastly, it could be, I've got feedback that has been beneficial to my career. So the answers to the impact or the results are infinite, but digging and pinpointing what they are is very important. So I'm going to call out some statements now, and you will have 100 of these statements that you would make in an interview answer off the cuff. But what I'm interested in is, do you know the impact that has had? Okay. So when you are preparing your interview answers, can you think about what is the impact of that action that you took? So number one is, I play an active role on the teaching and learning team. What's the impact of that? Number two, I resolved the tricky situation effectively. What's the impact of that? I arrive at school early every day. What's the impact of that? Number five, I arrive at school just on time each day. What's the impact of that? And lastly, I secured 3 green flags for our school. What's the impact of that? So each of those statements will have positive impacts and perhaps negative impacts. There's no judgment. This is just an opportunity for you to self-reflect and think about, from a coaching perspective, what you can do in order to get support, to improve, and just treat yourself in a very, very gentle way. But I threw in some ones that maybe, we've all been there. And is there something that you need to change? Are you very happy in that area? Is that something that you are doing? But the idea behind it is, any time that you make a statement, especially for your career stories. And by the way, I have that Secret Career Stories freebie, which is available on my website. I leave a link down in the show notes or here under the video on YouTube. And it will help you, because the third part of each of the boxes is referring to that results part. Okay. So the result of each of the competencies, looking at our school competencies, is going to help you to understand what the impact and what the results are on other people or on the organization, not for yourself, in a short and concise way. Do you remember that? We need to be telling our stories in a short, concise way. And you'll see the samples that I gave you there are very, very short. But head over to my website, orladempseycoaching.ie, and download the brand new observation and method to outline your experience. Using that word impact would be very helpful. And there's the few pages that you can download, print off, and come to terms with that. And it's all based on looking at our schools. So make sure that you do that. So that concludes our podcast for today. I'll be back next week with another Secret Career Stories reminder and another method and another way to be able to improve your interview answers. Take care.